There is no substitute for knowledge. Money spent for machinery, gadgets, automation cannot take the place of knowledge. One thing that we have lacked in this country, have plenty of money, investment in machinery, gadgets, computers, heavy investment. As we go downhill, down, 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 one little ingredient, absolutely vital, profound knowledge.
I'm Lloyd Dobbins.
And I'm Punk.
And this is Volume 9 of the Deming Library, a series of cassettes designed to teach the quality production methods of Dr. W. Edwards Deming.
He helps us understand his method.
Do you understand it now?
Of course I do, mate.
Okay then, what's profound knowledge?
And today Dr. Deming's going to help us understand profound knowledge.
Actually, he's already helped us with part of it. Our last two cassettes, Volumes 7 and 8, were about Dr. Deming's red bead experiment, and that experiment helps teach us about profound knowledge. Remember that we had to agree on what words meant, that we had to have operational definitions so that we could talk to each other. Well, that's part of profound knowledge.
Count it as white. You'll never see it again.
Thank you.
We also learned that everything that happens affects the people it happens to, and it affects different people, or even the same people, in different ways at different times. That's called the interaction of forces, and it, too, is part of profound knowledge. Profound knowledge includes being able to tell special cause from common cause, which means that you have to have knowledge of variation, of statistical theory.
So the red beads taught us profound knowledge.
Yes and no. The lessons from the red beads are part of profound knowledge, but not all of it.
What's the rest?
Today we're going to talk about the funnel experiment. It will help with our understanding of variation, and it will give us a graphic example of tampering, and a knowledge of tampering is another part of profound knowledge.
We're going to learn that from a funnel?
And a few other things.
We learn the effect of tampering without understanding a system. Simply, I'd say managing failures. You only make things worse. Now, most any kitchen has a funnel. Here's one. We need a marble that will go through the funnel without getting stalled on the way down. That went through. Let's mark a point on the tablecloth, which I'll call the target. We're going to have 4 rules of the funnel, 4 different ways to handle the funnel. First of all, we'll fix the funnel right over the target. One can dig up some kind of stand to fix the funnel to the stand. Maybe we want to move the funnel, maybe we don't. That'll be the difference between the several rules. We drop the marble 50 times with the funnel aimed at the target, and the funnel will be fixed. That I'll call Rule 1. We'll drop the marble through the funnel 50 times, and to our astonishment, we get variation. Such a disappointment. Some of the points of the 50 points would come close to the target, maybe right on top, as far as we can tell. Other times the marble will roll this way or that way, and the 50 drops will give us a rough circle, very rough, a disappointment.
Well, that's no good then.
But it's not as bad as you think. Remember the red beads? If we chart the 50 dots and do the math, we would find a stable system, and that would give us a rational basis to predict what would happen in the next 50 drops.
So that's what we're going to do.
Nope, we're going to do what almost everyone does. We're going to try to make it better.
Uh-oh.
See, at first we fixed the funnel. Now we're going to move the funnel. If the marble comes to rest 6 centimeters northeast of the target, I'll move the funnel from where it was 6 centimeters southwest, just opposite, and by the same amount. So the next drop will come right on the target. Can't miss it. Right on the target.
Uh-oh.
I'll call that Rule 2. We drop the marble 50 times. I get 50 points. I'll indicate them with a circle this time instead of a dot. Sometimes fairly close to target, maybe you're just about on top of it. We get 50 points, a rough circle, again, but it's bigger, a bigger circle than we got the first time. With all our effort of adjustment, we get worse results. We were tampering, we get worse results than if we'd left it alone.
Does it always get worse?
Well, it does if you're tampering, because what you're trying to do is get better results without knowing how.
Give me an example.
Well, for Rule 2, we adjust our inventory for next year based on the materials we used during this year.
Tampering?
Tampering. But there are other ways to tamper.
So we can try Rule 3, I'll call it. If the marble comes to rest 6 centimeters northeast of the target, I'll ignore the last position of the funnel, bring it back to the target every time, then compensate. Set the funnel 6 centimeters southwest of the target, so the next drop will go right on the target. That's Rule 3. Simply adjust at every time, at every drop, according to the error of that drop. Adjust the funnel from the target to compensate for the last error. I'll indicate those drops by an X. We got an X here, we get one over there. Some might come fairly close to the target. Get one here, get one over there. We get a nice bow tie. Goes off in 2 directions for the Milky Way. The drops get further and further away from the target with our best efforts. Further and further away from the target. And as we take more and more drops, we go further and further away. Our chance of coming close to the target diminishes. Those are examples of tampering. Tampering with a system that's stable.
No one would do that.
We do it all the time. Sometimes we even tamper on a grand scale.
What do you mean?
We tell the Border Patrol to stop drug smuggling, and the more successful that effort is, the more the price of drugs goes up. And the more the price goes up, the more drugs smugglers try to bring in. And the more the patrol stops, the more the price goes up.
And on and on.
And on.
Now we can do something else. We can ignore the target. Never mind the target. We're not going to try to hit it, but at least we're going to get everything all alike. The marble came to rest at this point, and I'll indicate it with a square. Always set the funnel right over the last drop to try to make everything alike. Sounds great. At least we'll have them all alike. They won't have the target value, but they'll all be alike. The result is astounding. Sometimes very close to target, might even bat around it, come over here, but we'll eventually move away from the target this way, or that way, or another way. The longer we stay with it, the less will be our chance to come within any distance of the target. We try and we get worse and worse. Tampering with a stable system. No, they make things worse. Worker training worker, very good example of Rule 4.
Another good example is the game Rumors. In some parts of the country, it's called telephone.
The children's game?
Exactly. I whisper a word to you, you repeat what you heard to someone else, and so on, until someone repeats the word back to me.
Only it's never the same word.
Exactly. The word I whispered has been tampered with by several people who didn't know what they were doing, but who tried to do their best. In a game, it's funny. In real life, it's ruinous.
Does Rule 4 happen often?
Every time a group of executives meets to set policy, or a congressional committee meets to consider a new law, if they do not have the guidance of profound knowledge, you're watching Rule 4 at work.
Well, what can you do to the funnel to make it better?
Don't ask me, ask Dr. Deming.
You're asking the question, I think, how would you improve the system?
Mm-hmm.
We would, well, in this case, all very simple, set the funnel closer to the target. diminish that distance, and you get a smaller circle. Maybe change the tablecloth, maybe change the marble. All stupidly simple changes.
That's easy.
Yes, it is, once you know how.
There's no substitute for knowledge, and I call this profound knowledge. It's pretty vital and rare. It's so simple, stupidly simple, but rare, unknown. Who could consider himself in possession of a liberal education and not know these things? So simple. Rule 1 gave us a stable system. And when it missed the target, we did something about it. Constructed Rule 2, Rule 3, Rule 4. And all of them make it worse. Because we were taking departure from the target as a signpost, guidepost. Do something about it. We make things worse.
What else?
Control limits are not specification limits. All this goes without saying. Sure, we like to stay within the specification limits, though that's not good enough, as we know. But you must not use specification limits as guides for achievement of statistical control. Let it run the way it is. Eliminate special causes, and then go to work on the system to improve the system.
If the 50 drops from Rule 1 of the funnel are put on a control chart, it could look like this. Now suppose the manager decided that anything more than 2 centimeters from the target didn't meet specifications, and he treated each one of those drops outside specifications as a special cause and tried to adjust the funnel.
He would be tampering.
Right, just like this manufacturer who asked Dr. Deming for advice.
The product was tubes for nuclear reactors. And I saw the plot week by week, proportion faulty, averaging 4.5%, some points above average and some below. For 3 years, no change, steady, stable system. It'll stay that way till the management does something about the system. Because what they were doing was tampering. I believe the president of the company took me to dinner. And I asked him how do you discover special causes? How do you determine whether your problems come from common causes or something special? There were no special causes. For three years, the system had been stable. His answer was, our engineers never stop till they find the cause of every defective tube. Sounds great. When I asked him about the data, where are your charts, where are your plots? The data are in the computer. Might as well put them in the wastebasket if you don't know what to do. Now look what's wrong. Our engineers never stop till they find the cause of every defective tube. Why is this tampering? Because the defects came from a common cause system. The common cause system produced a lot of good ones. Why not study the good ones? Don't you see the common causes produce a distribution? And they were studying those that are outside specification. Why not study the others? Come from the same system. Nothing special about those that go outside the specification limit. Not a bit. They were tampering. The ups and downs, variations from inside specifications to outside came from the same cause system. Sure, we don't like it. use it as signal of a special cause, and you're tampering, making things worse. Yeah, there's something to learn. Yeah, this is new. Yes, new. New knowledge. Sad part of it is that the customer, his customer, I'm sure, was very happy, satisfied that this manufacturer of the tubes for nuclear reactors was doing everything possible to give him a good product. How would he know? How would he know? Yeah. Pretty good question.
So knowing about tampering is part of profound knowledge.
Yes, it is. Do you remember the other parts?
Well, there's knowledge of variation and statistical theory,
Right.
knowledge of operational definitions, the difference between common and special causes,
And?
knowledge of interaction of forces. That's all of it.
No, there's one more.
How do you know?
I saw Dr. Deming's notes.
Okay, what is it?
Some knowledge of psychology. We have to understand how people are going to react. It ties in with the interaction of forces, but it goes beyond as well. It's not enough to know that people will react. We have to be able to predict how they will react.
Is profound knowledge the most important part of Dr. Deming's method?
We asked several people who have worked with Dr. Deming what they thought the most important part of his message was, and profound knowledge, or parts of it, turned up quite a lot.
He repeatedly says, there is no substitute for knowledge. And the burning desire on his part to impress upon management that idea that you must gain knowledge of your process is essential if people are going to make continuous improvements.
I think Dr. Deming, on the technical level, opened up a brand new understanding of variability, how to manage variability.
In 2 words, reduce variation, and then we can expand what do we mean by variation. Variation might mean in how you assemble something, whether things are working, variation in the method by which you do things, variation in meeting customer targets, variations in your plans and forecasts, variations in how you train your people. So if you understand variation, work to reduce it, and you have a method to reduce it, I think that's the heart of it.
There's no good or bad, there's only better. And the idea is not to look at outcomes, but to manage the source, to move upstream and look at the inputs and the transforming those inputs into outputs and work on that as a process to improve that, so the outcomes will be better.
Well, I like the no substitute for knowledge. I really like that one because it just, one of the reasons is because a lot of people pick up on the statistics and the tools, and they put out a lot of charts, but don't do the right thinking and the right application of them, and think that charts are going to be some substitute for what we really need.
And he will ask, how do you know? And he repeats that over and over, and there's a powerful message there which says that if you're going to rely on the information that you have, you'd better know that that data that you have is reliable.
Many companies think they can buy their way into quality with automation and robotics. Others think they can obtain quality by urging their people to do better without ever giving them tools and methods to allow them to get better.
It's changed my outlook about everyday life. The idea of common cause and special causes in everything. I think maybe it's made me more patient and caused me to be more compassionate. When I feel like people are not doing what they should be doing, I start to ask now about what the real causes of that might be, and not so much inclined to look at people and say they're shirkers or they're slackers. His thinking gets into your whole way of looking at life and human behavior, I think.
One of the key things that I notice is that when I get irate at incompetent airline service, for example, I don't blame the people at the counter. I used to get upset with them. when they would lie to me time after time, tell me the plane was going to take off or whatever, I would, blame them. I no longer do that. I know that's beyond their capability to do anything about that. I forgive them. They're part of a system. I even forgive management. I mean, it used to be, I went through a period where I blamed management for not accepting these things. They're part of a system too.
Company president was showing him equipment that he had just purchased. And he said to Dr. Deming, "Doctor, I have just purchased 50 million's worth of equipment." And Dr. Deming said to him, I think his name was also Ed, he said, "Ed, what you need around the place here is not $50 million worth of equipment, but $5 worth of brains."
$5 worth?
Well, that's a bit of hyperbole to make a point. Dr. Deming says repeatedly that you can't buy knowledge at any price, and the things that you can buy aren't any good to you without knowledge.
Money will not buy quality. Hard work will not ensure quality, nor best efforts. Study of examples will not ensure quality. Automation, gadgets, so-called high technology, nonsense. There's no substitute for knowledge of variation. There's no substitute for knowledge. I learned it long ago.
What is the philosophical base of the 14 points?
Reduce variation. Reduce variation. Instead of wandering all over, have a target. Aim at it. Constant improvement. The aim being to turn out product and service that will help man to live better materially and which will have a market.
I'll have to think about that.
That's not a bad idea at all. Not for any of us. We'll be back. Until then, I'm Lloyd Dobbins.
And I'm Punk.
For the Deming Library.